Welcome to Response-Able Parenting, the podcast that shows you how to parent in alignment to your emotions, needs, and goals versus your programming, bad advice, and let's face it, outdated strategies that just don't work. You'll get in the trenches support on nervous system and emotional regulation, critical mindset shifts, stronger communication strategies, and more. In this podcast, you'll gain transformational tools that take you from reacting to every frustration to responding with clarity, regulation, and finally setting the example you desire for your kids. I'm Becky Jennings, your new parenting coach, and this is the Response-Able Parenting Podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. I am thrilled to have Kristen Jenson on today. Guys, this is going to be an amazing podcast episode because we're going to be tackling a very tricky, sticky topic that I'm sure many of you have questions about. I have questions about. My husband has questions about. And so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty topic, and I am very excited to introduce you to Kristen Jenson. She is the founder of Defend Young Minds and the #1 best-selling author of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. These are both read-aloud books that you can teach your young children on how to reject pornography. So we are discussing the very sensitive topic about these images that our children might be seeing before we even are aware of it. And I will actually talk to you about something. My son goes to an after-school program, and we did first of all, welcome. Hi.
Hi, Becky.
Thanks for having me. I'm like, I have so many questions. I want to just jump right in. But thank you so much for being here. This is a really important topic. I think a very exciting topic for parents to get real, tangible communication strategies and actually know what to do. My son goes to an after-school program, and we have signed the pledge of no phone till 8th grade, which for me, I'm like, I think you're not even going to get phone till 16. Like, let's be honest. But there are some kids that still bring their phones. They can't have them in class, but in the after school programs, it's kind of, you are free to use your phone. And he said something, he was like, yeah, somebody was looking at something on their phone and it started with an O. And I'm like, that sounds like, I was like, did it rhyme with corn? I was trying to do some digging. He was like, I don't know. So, but I know that it's there, and my son's only in 2nd grade. And so I'm very excited to talk to you about this. So what got you started down this road?
Yeah, it was not one of my goals, let me tell you. But we had just moved to a new town for my husband's job, and I met a woman who was a mother of a large family. She was homeschooling. She was very concerned about protecting her children from sexual harm because she had actually had this happen as a child. She was very concerned. But what happened was her oldest son, she found out that he was sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters from the 14-year-old all the way down to the 4-year-old. And porn was definitely driving this behavior. So, a lot of things happened as a result of that. Many tragic things happened. So the next morning I woke up and I had this persistent thought that I should look for a resource so that, a parent could warn a young child about pornography, because I could see how it was producing these problems and fueling these problems with child-on-child harmful sexual behavior. So I went to look, and of course I thought, there's a book already written. There's probably 5 or 10, and I couldn't find any. So I started doing some research, just, reading articles, looking on YouTube, various things. And I started to think, you could boil this down for a 7-year-old. I mean, the harms of pornography, the addiction piece, give them a plan of what to do when they see it, and make it kind of like modeling a mother talking to her children, because that's usually the one that does that talk. Although dads are very welcome. And so I just started thinking, I'll just go ahead and write this book. I don't see it out there. And I just felt compelled to start this project. So that's kind of how it went. And I had a lot of help along the way. Uh, Kristen's brain can't do it all. I definitely brought in a lot of parents and psychologists and other experts to help me with this. And so I'm very grateful that we were able to fill a niche uh, and help parents start these conversations.
Oh, and that's so huge because also it's like I feel that everything is happening earlier and earlier and earlier. Like my mom will even say something like a word that my kids are using or a math problem or something that they're doing in school. My mom's like, I wasn't doing that at 5, and it's true. It's like everything is just so much earlier.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, and even puberty is happening earlier, right? So we weren't expecting puberty to happen 9, 10. We were expecting it to happen 13, 14, but yet here we are. And so these curiosities are happening much younger than I think parents are. It's not even on our radar.
Right.
I have a child heading into 3rd grade. So he's 8. And having the conversation of sex hasn't even really cropped into my head. Now, I'm very open about the female body and because I am in a house of all boys. And so I definitely talk about hormones. I talk about the shifts in my body. I talk about ways to support people when hormonal changes are happening. But it's more geared towards like, hey, listen, you need to be very aware of what a menstrual cycle is, how that affects a woman and things like that, just so they're not like, oh, you're on your period, something like that, right? Because I never want my child to say that to a girl who's like, ugh, oh, you must be on your period.
Yeah.
But,
Like it's shameful.
right, it's shameful, right? But it is like penis talk all day long. Like, it is just like, I mean, that's a boy thing. Yes. And there are limits and lines to that. And so I know it's kind of a bro thing at school to, whack somebody hit them in their nuts and stuff like that. And that's happening all the time. But I'm like, that's not appropriate. And how do parents have this conversation about, you know, physical touching, what that leads to, it's just like this desensitization of your private parts.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit about like how that kind of snowballs into this acceptance of that?
Yeah. So, uh, in my books, we talk about that. We give a definition of pornography that includes, bad pictures or pornography or pictures of people with little or no clothing on that focuses on the private parts of the body that we cover with a swimsuit.
Mm,
And so, why do we keep private parts private? Well, there's safety issues. And they abound in today's digital world that's just filled with sextortion and child porn and all these things. It should be child abuse, child sexual abuse images. So um, I feel like uh, that once your child is just so desensitized to this, then it just becomes um, easier and easier to become, in a toxic way,
yeah.
sexualized prematurely. And that's why I do recommend that parents begin these talks about sex earlier rather than later. We have an article on Defend Young Minds called, 7 things every 7-year-old needs to know about love and sex. And it's just to try to, and this summer, I have a 7-year-old grandchild. So I'm like talking to his mom and like, you need to really talk to him about this so he learns from you and not from the other kids who are bringing iPhones to school. And there's so much exposure to, inappropriate material at school from
Yeah.
kids that have phones.
Yeah.
So That is, I think what you're talking about is the 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 premature sexualization of children, um, in our society because of media, because of attitudes, and I think that that does have some real problems that go with it, and it's not like we can raise our kids in a bubble, but we can teach them our values and our thoughts to counteract the effects that that will happen as a result of the broader culture that they're being raised in.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure I link that PDF that you just mentioned in the show notes too, so people can access that on your site. But that leads me to another question is like, we sometimes think like, oh, we have parental controls on YouTube, or, oh, we have, we're not allowing them to go on, Roblox or something like that, which I do want to talk about Roblox in a second. But we think we're doing all the things, yet they still have access when we're not around. Maybe their friend has access to this. And so those conversations are super, super helpful. What would you say to a parent who their child is on Roblox? Maybe they do have the parental controls set up, or they're on YouTube and they have the parental controls set up. Like, for instance, my child was able to use YouTube Kids for a little bit. And then I've fully taken YouTube Kids off just because I was like, that just doesn't even feel okay to me. So when we use YouTube, we have to use YouTube together because he was trying to use his computer to type something about like, I think he was trying to find a math game or some sort of tutorial, but he typed the wrong letter and an image underneath showed up. And it wasn't pornography, but it was a really scary face. And he said, I've been thinking about that face for like 4 days. It was nothing to do. It was like some sort of horror face, but still he saw that image. And once you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yes, yes, but you can minimize it.
Yes.
So, okay, so your question was about reframe that question again. Throw that at me again.
No, that's totally fine. So my question really is like, we think we can do all the parental.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We can't.
No. Because we're used to like when our child is a toddler, a baby, whatever, we're like, we have total control pretty much, right? But as they get older and as they get using any kind of digital device, it's amazing how much control we lose. You should be using parental controls. You should be doing all those things.
Yeah.
And you should believe absolutely 100% that they are not going to completely end the access your child has to inappropriate content. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I promise you, it will not work if your child goes outside your door.
Yeah.
If you're raising your child in a compound with no access to the outside world, maybe. I don't know. But
Anyway, it's still
what?
like even still, they'll find
Even still, yeah. Because I've seen kids a video, and this is a few years ago, this is not even that new, of a kid, and he was on an iPad, and there was no browser, so the parents were like, "Oh, he can't get to anything. He could just use this art program." Well, that kid did like 17 different steps to get out to YouTube. And it was amazing, like, how did this kid figure it out? Well, they share all this stuff, and he was able to get out to YouTube through a back door of a back door of a back door of a back door. Wow. So, I guess what I'm saying is sometimes parental controls give parents a sense of false security. Just know it, the only filter that's going to work in all cases is the internal filter. And that's the internal filter that you're going to lay down day by day, week by week, month by month, as you create a disposition of digital safety, and teach your child exactly why they want to reject pornography. So in the books, we talk about three things. We give a definition so they know what it is and they can recognize it. We give why it's harmful, reasons, right? So they have good arguments. So oh, there's a reason for this, not just that mom told me it was bad, right? Or dad said, don't you ever look at this. We have reasons, right? And there's a lot of science. It's all based on science. And then third, a plan, right? So they know exactly what to do when they are exposed to pornography or any other kind of material that makes them uncomfortable. And you had mentioned that your your child saw an image that was really scary, and I was thinking we can actually minimize that. There are ways that you can, and it's in my books, to minimize those pictures, those memories, because uh there's neural pathways
Mhm.
that get created, and the brain pays attention to anything that's shocking,
Yeah.
and will remember it. Will
Yeah.
have you. So there are ways to do that, and I think we need to teach our kids really these digital defense skills, so that not only about pornography but other things that are scary and that just are so sticky in the brain and that continue to bother them for a long time and may, in the case especially of pornography, lead them back and kind of ignite that curiosity more than it's already ignited and lead them back to seek it out even after they were just accidentally exposed.
Yeah. And that popped a question into my head. Like, while we're having the conversation earlier and earlier about the birds and the bees, and like what sex actually is, like, I'm very to the point. I'm not like, well, it's only when one person loves another person. Like, I'm not doing the sing-songy. I'm like, this is what it is kind of thing. And I'm going to be very matter of fact about it. Like, we've already talked about different parts, and it's this, why one part seems to have a little bit more. It's like your elbow is different from your, your private parts. But there is no shame around like having it, but there is a difference. Um, and we talk about how, our pediatrician is like the only person who's allowed to see it is yourself, your mother or your father. And if your doctor is, doing an examination or checking something, and with the consent of you and your parent, right? So our pediatrician is very vocal about that, which I also appreciate. But at the same time, it brings to my mind, like, if we're talking about this and we're talking to them about what sex is, what the implications are, does that spark a curiosity for them to go seek out more images of it, or more, like, I think maybe that's a question of parents, is if we're talking about that because young minds are so curious, will that
Mhm.
make them more curious to go look more?
Yeah, I love this question because pretty much every mother and father, they have this question.
Mm.
Especially moms, they're afraid because basically we get blamed for everything.
Yeah, of course. It's always our fault.
It's always our fault. It's always the mom's fault.
Always.
Um, and or maybe we just tend to feel guilty about everything. I don't know, but
Right.
or maybe that's just me. But I
Now
feel
you're
like
back there.
there have been, so for the last many decades, we have tried this uh, strategy of like, don't tell the kids anything about pornography. Don't bring it up. They might be curious, whatever. We don't want to plant that seed of curiosity. And guess what? It doesn't work because they're going to see it. They're going to be unprepared. They're going to be caught off guard. And I don't know about you, Becky, but like when I'm caught off guard, I don't do very well. I really don't. And so um, they're caught off guard. They're pulled in by their curiosity. They have no information about why this could be harmful to them or what it could lead to. So the only choice, you have two choices, and that is, cross your fingers and hope that, they don't get into this. Nobody shows, pornography to them on the school bus or in the playground, which I have so many stories about. Um, and until like the week, after you started that conversation. So if we all had a crystal ball, maybe we could do that, but we don't. And kids can get exposed in a moment in a most unlikely situation. Um, so I had so many stories of kids that are exposed on the playground, on the school bus, at a friend's home, at a home where you're just having dinner with a friend, and you know this happens. It's very you can't predict it. So what you can do is prepare your child with a definition, a warning, and a plan so they know what to do and they know you're the safe person to talk to when this happens to them, because it surely will, and you will not you will not be able to know when this happens. You just won't, or predict it. So better to be prepared, because I feel like, the first plan hasn't been working. So let's do the second plan. And to be honest,
Weird that these plans that we had of just ignoring things isn't
yeah,
working.
not working. Oh, that's amazing. Um, but like for example, my grandson, when I think about my 7-year-old, we already read him the junior book. We're about to read him the original book for 7 to 11-year-olds. And he so let's say he was curious. Let's say we talked to him. I'd still want to find out, because before this kid is savvy enough, hopefully, to know about like erasing browser history or using incognito mode or whatever, right? We see, he's gone in and looked for this. Well, guess what? Now we can ramp up the talks. Now we can start to we know there's a problem. We know, like, isn't that better than just blissfully being aware? And then, when your kid is 30 and they're getting divorced because he's got a porn addiction,
Right.
that's when we find out. Because I'm telling you, there are a lot of mothers out there that's when they find out.
Yeah.
And so, if ever. So I think that we owe our kids, we owe this to our children. No child deserves to face the porn industry alone. They need our help. They need our brain, our prefrontal cortex to help them, our thinking brain, and we can do it. It's not as hard as you think.
It's 2025, and there is more parenting advice than ever before. Yet we're still confused, stuck, and defaulting back to the way our parents raised us in the 80s and 90s. Parenting has evolved since then, and it's time your strategies do too. Welcome to the Responsible Parenting community. This is where you get the support you're looking for so you can make fast, positive, and long-term change in your household. Inside my community, you get access to my signature course, Stuck to Strong, your emotional regulation roadmap to raising ADHD and strong-willed kids. You have my Fast Way to Regulate challenge, giving you 30 days of nervous system work to completely rewire how you react to the stress of parenting. On top of that, you have weekly opportunities to connect with me and get personalized support on issues that challenged you that week. You also have quarterly workshops, bite-sized mini lessons to keep you motivated, and everything I add for as long as you're a member. This is your place to filter out all the noise and get practical strategies that work. Join the community today and start feeling relief as early as tonight. It's funny because we think our kids aren't going to be exposed. And I had a friend, she put on a regular YouTube channel, but she put on like a live, I think it was Bluey, or a live like Paw Patrol or something like that. But because it was live and not recorded, there are ways that hackers can like drop in like a 2-second clip of something. And all of the sudden, like a week later, her daughter was making moaning noises that you would see that there was no other way that she would know this type of sound. And we soon discovered that it was in these live little YouTube things that just would pop in a little clip of that. And I think the daughter was like 4 years old. And so many different ways that our kids could be exposed, even when we think we're putting on a beautiful show like Bluey. these things could happen. And I've heard it from this happen from not just her, but like other parents have said, like they saw something pop on the screen and their kid was like, "Oh, what was that?" You know? And it's just there, it's out there. And so,
Yeah.
like you said, it's so much smarter to have a plan, know how to talk to this, because this is like one of those conversations that we're like, if we don't nail it the first time, we're totally screwing this whole thing up. But it's like, if you
Oh,
gradually are having this conversation, you are showing yourself or showing your child that you are the person that is so safe to talk to. There's not going to be any punishments. There's not going to be any of this, like, how dare you? It's like, no, this is really important for your mental and emotional health. Like, really important, because even, yes, it's incredibly important for their physical health also later on in life. But for right now, when we're preparing them for this conversation, preparing them to experience this, that mental and emotional health is really, really important.
yeah, because there in fact, I just gave a last, summer, I was at a major, international conference, and I, gave a presentation on, the mental, health disorders and pornography, and there's just a growing body of science that is showing that kids that pornography, really leads and is associated with, and in many ways causes, mental health problems. Kids getting sexual toxic scripts, uh, even before they have had a chance to mature
Mhm.
and know what it is they're seeing, this is very damaging to their growth. So if we can get in there and be ideally,
Yes.
not always possible, I understand, but ideally be that first impression
Yeah.
and that safe space.
Yeah.
um, we can really help our children um, grow up in a healthy, happy way without this really dark, sexually toxic influence of pornography. Because, as you said before, like parents are like, right, well, if I tell them, I'll ruin their innocence. It's like their innocence is not the goal. Okay, it's not the goal because it can't be the goal.
Yeah.
Innocence. We love our kids to be innocent till they're what, 12 years old or 30, whatever, but it's not possible. And so the goal is to get your child ready to make correct choices, to make good choices for their own health and safety.
Yeah.
Innocence is not the goal. We don't need to worry about, and really, if we bring it up, if we just read these books to them in a kind of a normal, this is about your safety, we're just going to talk about this, they're not freaked out. It's just another thing. It's all the context, right? Reform the context.
Yeah.
The context is, mom and dad have talked to you about other safety issues. Now we're going to talk about this one. Just one
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point. It's like, my son's like, all of my friends have Roblox. I'm the only
Oh,
one.
Roblox.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
you're the only parent who doesn't allow Roblox. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm A-okay with that. I'm totally fine with not having Roblox. And at the same time, he has art apps, but like you just said, that kid got to YouTube within a few minutes of that back channel. So it's like, yes, I'm putting, you know, my son has severe ADHD. And so I just know the addiction to these games is much stronger. So I just don't allow them as much. And that's more for the ADHD side, less for the pornography side of things or the safety side. But it's just because I want him to be engaging in other things. But
Yeah.
that point to be is like, there's so much social pressure to be on these apps so that he can keep up with the Joneses of his friends. Like, well, they're on Roblox, they're on Minecraft, they're on this. And so we can feel that pressure to not be the parent who's like, fine, I don't want to be that sticky parent. I have no problem being that parent who's like, no. But I know a lot of parents who are like, I just don't want him to be left out in the conversations of, what did you do on Roblox? What game did you play on Roblox? I don't care about that. But that's for ADHD reasons. But parents are so willing to allow their kids on Roblox so much earlier. And I just keep hearing over and over and over again about these games that pop up that are
Yeah.
so sexually driven. Can you
Yeah.
speak to Roblox a
Yes.
little bit?
Yes. In fact, I was quoted in the Wall Street Journal about Roblox.
Really?
Not that you know, I know about Roblox. There are many other people that are more expert than me. However, this is the thing that parents may not realize.
Yeah.
Roblox is like YouTube. Roblox is just a platform for other people to put on all these games, right? And also to be contacted, by all these people around the world that can play and get on Roblox. There are what they call sex condos where, they do very sexual things, um, and sexual acts and talk about sex. And, there are no iron gates, on Roblox. So you can be contacted by a predator. And what parents don't understand, I think, is that, and what I didn't understand is like, well, but what harm could be, even if there was somebody, a predator, like they're not going to know where my kid lives. They're not going to know. Well, let me tell you, there's very sophisticated ways that they can find out. And also, if they're chatting with their child, it's amazing the amount of information they can get from your child, that will lead them to know where they are and then communicate with others that are in your local area. So there's networks of pedophiles out there. They help one another to find victims. So I think that we need to realize that digital safety is almost more important than our physical safety. We've kind of gone overboard on physical safety and way under on digital safety, because we can't see exactly how this happens. But there are many children that are so Roblox, any multiplayer uh, game,
Yeah.
where people from all over the world can get on and have access to talking to your kid, is a no-no. And I just want to say one more thing. My grandkids play a closed kind of a form. They have their own server, I guess, with Minecraft,
Yeah.
right? So they play just with their own family members this Minecraft. And they're very careful about not letting them on other games that let the whole world in. But I want to just speak to something about the pressure to conform, the pressure to let your kid have everything that all the other kids. When you um allow that pressure to affect your parenting and your decisions, what are you teaching your child? Just think about it. Just step back and think about what you're actually teaching your child. And that is, when everybody else is doing something, we should do it too. No, should not. And then, um, and we can't be different. We can't have our own boundaries. We can't have our own, it's just, and I think that you should actually think about doing something different with your child so they are different. So they can say, "Oh, we don't do that. We do this instead." Right? Um, because if your child has the ability to say, "No, we don't do that, but I play this other game," or,
Yeah.
we we um we go clogging on the weekends, or we go do this, we can be different, and that is
Yeah.
good, because
Yeah.
that gives them a defense against this concept, this ideology that everybody has to be in line, and that can lead to tragic results. It's okay to be different. It's
Yeah.
okay to be different, and to say and to let your kid be different, because the harm that your kid could possibly sustain from being on Roblox or all these other games is much greater than him or her saying, "You know what? I play this other game, or I do this other thing." And teach your child to not say, "Well, I can't do that." Teach them to say, you know, um, "I do this other thing instead," right? "I have these other opportunities instead. They're really cool, and I really love them."
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so true. Like we got this like old school like 90s game that like, it's like, the it's it but my kids are loving it and has not it's there's no chat opportunities there. It's just literally it's almost like it's that snake game, like that we used to play where we have to move the snake, but they think it's so cool and I'm like, yeah, those things still are fun and those things still and now my son's talking about like, have you played Plants versus Zombies versus are you on Roblox? And I love that he can say, I don't do Roblox, but I play Minecraft and I play Plants versus Zombies. And that's totally, I mean, it's actually a really fun game. But I have noticed the kids who not, and I'm not saying any sort of judgment whatsoever, but I have noticed a different language with kids who play Roblox. A different, it's almost like I don't want to say a maturity, but it is a loss of innocence, I guess you could say, for the kids who are playing Roblox.
Jaded.
Jaded. That's a better word.
Can I just say something else about Roblox and any of these games where your kid can other people can have access to your kids? The FBI, it's like a year and a half ago, put out a warning. I think it was like January of 2024, 3. Anyway, what is happening is there'll be, a group of predators. They work together, they're organized. Okay. This is organized crime. And they will get on, pretend that they're other kids, and find their victim. If he's playing alone, whatever. I don't know how they identify it, but they're really good. And then they will pretend to be other kids and then they'll befriend them and like, "Oh, come play with us," and you're like, your kid is like, "Oh, I got some friends." And they do the friend thing for a little while and then they start sharing inappropriate pictures of themselves, right? And then pressuring your child to also take pictures and share. And this is a real problem because then it normalizes, it breaks down his barriers, and really they're adults and they're just looking to sextort him. And so again, they're very savvy, and with the advent of AI, I just saw a study which shows that AI, when they took a group of people and they texted messages to try to see if they could change a person's mind about an opinion about some topic, they found AI was actually better at persuading people to do or think something differently.
Yep.
That should give us a big red flag.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of AI tools that these predators use to find their victims, to infiltrate their social media, to sextort them. So anyway, the dangers online are many,
Yes.
and we need to be like we need to respect that they're growing and they're getting more and more sophisticated. And we need to give our kids a heads up, not fear, not, "Oh my gosh," but just be careful. Let them grow up and get some judgment and have their thinking brain develop before we expose them to every predator in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like a 7-year-old on Roblox has no concept of what's happening. And honestly, it's AI is getting so sophisticated. I mean, to the point where, a journalist is in front of a scene and they're stating this whole new thing that this war broke out or whatever broke out and that's circulating around. Well, that's AI. That doesn't even exist. And it's not just you can spot it now because there's a sixth finger in the picture. That's no way. It's getting so, so good. And I think a recent story came out last week or the week before of a 10-year-old girl getting abducted because she was talking to somebody on Roblox and they found her at a playground and that was that. Um they it's just it happens so quickly. And so
Yep.
I think what your
Yep.
point is like the head in the sand is just it's gone. Gone are the days of the head in the sand. Gone are the days of I have so many parental controls on my iPad. I have so many parental controls. I'm choosing safe apps because now we know there are so many ways to get through those apps. There, even if you have done every fail safe, the best fail safe is to have these communications
Yeah.
ahead of time so that you're actually being proactive. So the trust lies with you, not other friends, so that the conversation is around health and safety. If I'm like, oh, you're not allowed to know this yet, like this is above your pay grade, they're still possibly being subjected. They're still possibly seeing this. And so, it is, yes, you're not allowed to see this. Yes, I'm doing all the things I can do in my power. And I still need to have these conversations with you. And you
Right.
still need to know, we still need to have a plan and protocol. I talk about this all the time with ADHD is like, we can do all these things and the behavior is still going to happen. So when it does happen, what is our protocol? What is our way to keep you safe, me safe, our stuff safe, all of this? So it's the exact same thing. It's just a more sensitive topic and a topic that we are avoiding a lot because it's it's an
It's
intense
uncomfortable.
because it's uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, but I had a neighbor who was a social worker, and she dealt with kids that were being harmed by pornography, by sexual, exploitation, and she did not know how to talk to her boys about this, and she was worried because she had a friend whose 8-year-old daughter, they gave her an internet connected device for her birthday just after they had told her about the birds and the bees. She was 8 years old, and she just decided that she was going to do what she saw her parents do, which is go and ask a question of Google, right? So she Googled, sex, and what she found was horrible, violent porn, and she started looking at it. It totally changed her personality. She became, she was this bright, happy child, and she became withdrawn. Every day after school, she came back, used her device in her bedroom to kind of look at things. And it wasn't until months later that they found this. Um, and thankfully, they got her to counseling. But, you know, when my friend heard about this, she was just in a tailspin because, like, how do I even talk to my boys? I'm a social worker. I don't even know how to start this conversation. And when I walked over there and said, would you look over this manuscript of mine, because I'm writing this book. And she was just like, "Oh, this is exactly what we need." And she had she read like a beta, reader. And she said, "Kristen, it was just so natural. It was so comfortable. It was just like all the other discussions that we have with our kids about safety." And she said, "I've just felt this weight come off of my shoulders. You don't realize how much you're worrying about this until you start this conversation, and then you feel so much lighter and just so much like, okay, I'm starting to build this internal filter so that even though I've tried to lock everything down in my house, at grandma's house, wherever, they're still going to go out in the world. They need to go out in the world. And I just need to help build this internal filter so they can know exactly what to do." So again, you know, give them a definition so they can recognize it, a warning so they know why it's dangerous, and a plan so they know exactly what to do, not only when they see it, but also when those memories come flooding back to them. And when you give them those things, those three things, a definition, a warning, and a plan to deal with it, they are going to be so much more prepared and stronger, um, and they have a real choice. I mean, honestly, if we don't talk to them and teach them, they don't really have a full choice. They don't have their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed for another like 10 or 12 years. And they or more, and they really don't know what to do in these situations. But their first instinct is to hide it. It's not their first instinct is not to run and go tell mom. I just saw a bunch of naked people doing things. So if we teach them, though, I think that is, one of the stories I love to tell is of a 9-year-old boy. His mom read him good pictures, bad pictures. He went to school. 3 days later, a kid on the playground came up with a smartphone and said, "Hey, I want to show you something," and, maybe to see his reaction, maybe whatever, and showed him pornography. And the kid recognized it, realized, I know now what I'm supposed to do. He went home and he said, "Mom, I was scared. I was scared, but I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I knew what to do." And he was feel this burden coming off his little 9-year-old shoulders, knowing that he's got an advocate, an ally, someone to help him deal with a very troubling experience. And it is troubling. And I'll tell you, just an aside, but I was at a playground with my grandson, and some other kid pulled out a phone. They were playing, and he went over to my grandson to show him something on the phone. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say I kind of went ballistic, like I went over there, put that phone away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are not showing, you put that phone away.
Yeah.
That's not appropriate.
And it goes back to, who do you want to be your kid's teacher, right? Who do you want your kid's teacher to be? Do you want it to be you with your values, your boundaries, what your hopes and aspirations are for your child? Or do you want it to be the same age kid who has a phone on the playground? Like, truthfully, that's what it comes down to, is who do you want your child to learn this information from? Because they're going to learn it.
They are.
So who best to teach it than you, in a shame-free way, in an educational way, in a safe way, in a way that's protective of their mind, their heart, their emotions, and their bodies. And it's just such a tool for parents to have, so that we, a lot of the times it's like we have all this information from all these different places of like these 90-second clips of how to talk about it. And it's like, when you follow one plan and you stay consistent in that one plan, it really works. Like, if you're going to follow a diet, follow the same meal plan. If you're going to follow an exercise routine, follow the same exercise routine. It's not like, let's not pull all this information in. Let's just do the one thing that has been proven to work. Stay consistent in it, and just add that to your toolbox of how you're already educating and growing your child's self-esteem and values and all of that. So I think this is just an incredible resource for parents, knowing that it is actually safe to start talking to them at a young age. What is the age for the juniors book?
So the junior book is 3 to 6,
Okay.
and or 7 or 8. I have parents that will read. They'll start, and they'll push the age up. That's fine. You do you, whatever. It's a very simple, gentle approach. And again, you can go on Amazon and look at all the reviews. Look at it on social media. You can see that people are it's a very comfortable way. So that's 3. We say 3 to 6, 3 to 7. Because it's a picture book. The other one that I wrote originally has more words. It's chapters. I recommend that you read it like one chapter a night or a week, whatever, and just thoroughly kind of digest it and talk to your child about it. It has questions after each chapter.
Great.
And just much more in depth. And we do have to, as they get older, I'm working on something for, you know, the next step, right after good pictures, bad pictures for teens, some conversation starters. I'm also working on a book for girls. Girls get into this. Girls are curious. Newsflash: girls are actually curious about sex. Okay, can I just put that out there? We're very curious. They're curious, and they want to know the answers too. And if they get going into porn, they can have the same addiction. They often get to it in different ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Not lie. There's
so
way more shame for girls in this than there is boys.
absolutely, way more shame. And again, we talk in this new book for girls they'll be coming out by the end of the year. We talk about, objectification and how if that porn teaches, you to objectify your body, and being an object is not being human. Okay. They're different. Um, and so, but can I just bring up one more thing, Becky, before we end? And that is
Absolutely.
parents are very keen. Many parents are very keen on buying a book or talking to their kids about body safety, right? You know, so they don't have so they have a child that is safer from sexual abuse. And so very important to have these body safety conversations. We often on Defend Young Minds recommend books for that. However, teaching your child to reject pornography from a young age is teaching them to reject the number one grooming tool that children that predators use to groom children. They use pornography to normalize, to, break down boundaries,
Totally
um,
desensitize the whole situation.
desensitize. And I have a story about that. There was a 6-year-old boy. His mom had read him Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. So he had gotten, trained about that. And they went over to some friend's house for a dinner. After or before dinner even, the kids wanted to play, and they'd taken all the toys and put them down in the basement at the bottom of the stairs because they were doing some renovations. So the kids were instructed, go down, pick up a toy, come back up. So this kid was down there, obviously alone, because he was kind of deliberating which toy to get. And a man came up. Turns out they had a renter down there. Came up with a cell phone. He showed this boy gay porn and said, "This is really fun. We could do this together." He started grooming this child because he knew, here's a friend of the kids upstairs, and he'll be over here. And I can, and he may have even known that he was over there before. So, like, he had this opportunity to begin this grooming process. Except this kid had gotten the memo, right? That's pornography. And I know that nobody should be showing me pornography. Nobody should be showing me bad pictures. So he ran up, got himself out of that situation, and told his mom. Now, that kid is not going to be exploited by that predator, right? Because he knew something that saved him. And while I think that it's sad that we have to, train our children, it would be really nice if this were just an adult problem that we could solve as adults.
Right.
But we're teaching our kids to swim. So if they fall in the pool, they can, swim. We need to teach our kids to be uh, more impervious and safer from child sexual abuse because they know to reject the number one grooming tool, which is pornography.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just the evolution of parenting now. It's that we need to
Yeah.
protect our kids against digital predators. And that's just the reality. And that's just the landscape of parenting now. So this is really, really helpful information.
And we can do it. We can do it.
And it's not that hard and it's not that scary. And honestly, uh, we know the exposure will happen. It's just point blank period.
I know.
I
I've
know.
been thinking about it.
I hate thinking about it because right now they're laughing about Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's all fine and good. And then it's inevitable. And so the earlier we can be prepared, the more we can be the teacher By the way, it's so funny. I just muted mine because my dog was just barking.
I know. I'm so sorry. Uh,
Okay. No.
somebody's at the door, and I'm pretty sure it's my daughter coming over, and that dog loves my dog.
That's I'll wrap it up real fast, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you so much because this is such an important tool for us to have as parents, especially, I mean, elementary school kids, we don't think it's happening. It's happening. And so just, 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, it sounds so young. 3-year-olds, it sounds so, so, so young, but it is important because we're not showing it to them. We're not doing that. We are teaching them to be aware. We are teaching them, just like we say, hey, if a stranger says, do you want to see my puppy in the car at the playground? We tell them, no, I have to go ask my mom. Like we train them this. Let's train them the same way in digitally. So thank you so much for having this conversation. I am thrilled. I'm going to share the books with my own kids. So I'm very excited about this. Thank you so much. And I will link all of your information, your resources, your links to the books, all of that in the show notes as well. So everybody can.
Great. And I would love to invite everyone to come and join us on social media at our Instagram account or Facebook, Defend Young Minds. And we have a free downloadable guide called How to Talk to Kids About Pornography on Defend Young Minds. So grab that. And we want to be there for you to help protect your children, defend them from, because it's a great world out there. There's wonderful things. Let's have them thrive in the digital landscape and not be hurt by it. That's what we want to do.
I love it. Well, thank you again so much. And I will send you an email and let you know how it goes with my kids.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thanks, Becky.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the Responsible Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.